Well, here we are. I'm working on my keepsake box today, and I need to make a narrow rip with a groove in it to support a bottom. And I need to get down to 1 1/8", and I can't. I'm stuck here. I'm about 1 5/16" it looks like on my rip fence. And look what's happened. My fence is touching my guard, so I can't go any farther. I would be bending the guard and the splitter. So I guess this is a good time. I'm going to have to go over and talk about my third table saw. Let's go over. Well, here we are back at the third table saw, and I want to set this up to make a narrow rip. So that would be anything less than about 1 3/4". 1 3/4", you can get through the other table saws that we were just at, and be able to include a push stick, which you would want to do at 1 3/4". But less than that, we've got to come back here. So this is a good table saw. It's an older model. It's a Rockwell, but it doesn't have all the safety features that the other ones have, and so that allows us to do narrow rips and allows us to do grooves, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But it has a guard, but it doesn't have the same guard system that the other ones do with the splitter and anti-kickback pulls and all that stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is I need to get a little closer here, and we will slide the guard back out of the way so we can set this up. So I'm simply, here's the guard over here. I'm going to loosen it right here, and there's a crank, and that'll raise and lower the guard. So if you raise and lower the blade, you should probably raise and lower the guard. And this knob here, we need to make sure stays tight to the right, clockwise, because if you loosen it, that'll unlock it from the table, and you can see what happened. It just fell into the blade there. So this needs to remain locked down. So let's pull that back out of the way. Now we can get to the blade. You'll notice that this fence does not have a scale on it like the other table saws. Looks like there was a scale, but it's pretty worn down. Like I said, this is an older model, and there's no pointer. So we're gonna use simply a ruler to set our fence here. So I'm looking for 1 1/8", and that's gonna be my space inside the blade to the fence. So 1 1/8", I will raise the lever. And this one's pretty cool because it has this fine adjustment wheel. So as long as this is pushed in, you can turn it, and there's a little teeth on the bottom of the fence bar there, where you can move that back and forth a little bit. If you pull it out, then you can simply just slide the fence with your hand. But if that's pushed in, kind of a unique feature, pretty cool. So I'm going to bring this over to 1 1/8". I'll bring you guys in a little bit there. So I'm turning that wheel slowly, and you may notice that as you start to lower the lever that it moves the fence a little bit. That's because it's squaring it up. What do you think? 1 1/8". Looks pretty good to me. It's squaring it up to the blade so that you don't have to measure on the front side and the back side of the blade. So that's what's going on. Yes, it does. It may move the fence a little bit. Again, we want to check our blade height. Here's my piece. So I'll set that next to the blade. And how much are we looking for here? Yes, about 1/8 of an inch, 1/4, maybe a standard pencil. There's my standard pencil. All right, that's 1/4 inch high. So our blade should be under that. And that looks good. So lastly, I want to pull this pull the guard over. And I have to set that manually. I don't want to just make a cut now without a guard over the blade. That's not a good idea. So I will simply push this over. Now I'm gonna have to use a push stick through there. It's only 1.1/8, and I have a push stick. So what I like to do is set my push stick in here. I know that's gonna have to slide through there, and then I can bring my guard over so I have enough room to get my push stick through. Whatever push stick you grab, this one is about maybe 3/4 of an inch or so. Some are thicker, some are thinner. If you're cutting back here and you need to cut a really narrow piece, you could always, you might cut the push stick. That's okay. They are sacrificial. So we'll make more, lots of scrap plywood. I'd certainly rather cut a push stick than my finger. So anyhow, I don't need to adjust the height of the guard right now. They're like, well, I could bring it down a little bit, I suppose. And I'm all set. So I set my fence, I set my blade height, and then I brought my guard over. Okay? I still don't want to cut short pieces. Needs to be at least 12. But I can cut narrow pieces if you're comfortable. If you're not, let me know and I'll help you out. All right, so let me move the camera out of the way, or I'll just slide you guys off the side here. And I think we're ready to make our narrow rip. Here we go. So there we go. Now I have my piece that's 1.1/8. Now, obviously you could see I had to reach back and grab it. That's not a good idea. I wish I would have had a partner here, but there's nobody else here today. It's Saturday. So anyhow, use a partner, please. All right, so now we can get set up for a groove. Okay, so I am getting ready to make a groove here, and I only need a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch, and that's going to be for the bottom material. This is just scrap whiteboard. We have a bunch of that for free, so I can pass that along to you guys. And this is just slightly wider than 1/8 of an inch. If I were doing a really wide groove, then I might take the time to stack up in my table saw something like a dado head. And there's a whole stack of blades here in the set, in the kit, that I can use to get essentially a wider saw blade. So I'm not interested in doing that. That takes a little bit of time, and I don't need that today. So I might have to make 2 passes, like a blade and a half. This blade is a full 1/8 inch. Some blades are a little bit on the thin side. So anyhow, I also took a moment to lay out my piece. This is according to my plans. So this is the groove right here down the middle. That's what I want to take out, okay? And I'm going to take that out so that my bottom material will sit in that groove, okay? It's a good idea to have a piece of that bottom material with you so that you can check it as you're making your cut. And so how do we do that? Well, you can see I've already pulled the guard back so I can access the blade clearly. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the blade height. So I don't know if you can see that very well. It's a little bit hard to tell, but I need to lower the blade down. Oh, maybe that needs a little oil. So I'll lower the blade down so that it's the proper height. About 1/4 of an inch is what the plans recommend. So I've got my blade sitting up about 1/4 of an inch, and now I need to get the fence in position. And you know how to move the fence. Raise the locking lever and slide it left or right. And you can do that by positioning your material, you can see that I've laid it out on the end. We'll bring in a little bit here, right there. Okay. So I've got this laid out. And now we will pull the guard over. Well, one more step before I pull the guard over, and that's I want to set a feather board. So my feather board is this guy right here. And what that's going to do is it's going to keep my material pushed over to my fence. Sometimes when you're making grooves, your feather board or your piece wants to come away from the fence. And I don't want that to happen. So I want to set a feather board. So I'm going to set this on top of my blade now that I have my fence in position. And my feather board goes up against the side. And I'll turn on the locking knobs. Those knobs turn on a magnet, and the magnet sticks to the table because the table's steel. So there is my feather board, and now I'm all set up. Well, no, I'm not. I need to bring my guard over the blade. Again, make sure you leave room for your push stick. And there we go. Okay? So, as I run this through, I may have to make 2 passes. What I'm going to do is run it through once. I'm going to check with my whiteboard and see if it fits. If it doesn't, then I'm going to just move my fence slightly either way, about half a blade width, just a little bit, just to make sure that groove fits nice. All right, let's check it out. Well, that fits pretty nice. The first time it did fit, but it was awfully tight, and I don't want this to bind when I glue this up and cut my pieces. So I moved the fence a little bit, and there we go. So how did I make a groove? I set my blade height. I brought my fence over to the correct position. I set my feather board. And lastly, I pulled my guard over before I began my cut. Again, remember to work with a partner. You should have a second person to grab your material on the back side of the saw. And I didn't have that today, so yeah. All right. Thanks. Good luck with your project. We'll catch you next time.